Let's bring in Vasyl Myroshnychenko, Ukraine's ambassador to Australia, I should say. He joins me live from Perth. Thanks for joining us, Ambassador. First up, you must be very, very disturbed and worried about a fresh Russian onslaught.
Of course, it's an escalation, and very strong words from Ukraine's president at the UN General Assembly yesterday. President Zelensky has called to deprive Russia of its veto power, has demanded justice for the crimes of aggression, for the crime of aggression against Ukraine, and all the crimes against humanity perpetrated by the Russians in Ukraine. President Biden called it an outrageous act. Look, Ukrainians are not surprised that Russia is escalating. Putin is desperate. He needs to rotate his armed forces in Ukraine. He can't do it through the regular army. He needs to go to actually reservists to do that. There is a huge pushback within Russia for that. And of course, it can get worse before it's going to get better for Ukraine. Nevertheless, Ukrainians are ready for that. They're ready to fight. All we need is we need the right weapons that we can get from our Western allies.
I'll come to that in a moment, Ambassador. But firstly, what President Zelensky said to the United Nations via video link, this idea that Russia should be punished by denying it its veto. Who could disagree with that? But it just underscores the impotence of the United Nations, doesn't it? Because, of course, any motion, any decision, any effort to deny it a veto would likely be vetoed by Russia itself, let alone China.
Look, it's a different question of the UN reform. United Nations was established in 1945. That was a different time we lived in. And actually, Ukrainian Socialist Republic was one of the founding member states of that. However, when the Soviet Union collapsed, nobody ever voted for the right for Russia to occupy the seat of the Soviet Union. And therefore, we believe it was illegitimate and it must be questioned. And that's a mechanism that should be used and an avenue that should be pursued by all other UN member states. But look, we don't have anything else but UN right now, and the UN Charter is still the main document of international law. What is important that Russia disrespects the Charter of the UN and has violated it grossly.
Yeah, now that's an important point. It's actually a Soviet Union seat that's been inherited by Russia. Now, speaking of Russia, are you heartened by the humanity of protesters in Russia over the past days, the past 24 hours, protesting against the call-up of reservists, protesting against the prospect of more Russian action against Ukraine? Or are you worried that even these protests in Russia will make Vladimir Putin even more unpredictable?
I think it's all up to the Russian people to take down Vladimir Putin. I think he's damaged Russia so much. He damaged the reputation of Russia. He made all Russians toxic. They should flood the streets of Moscow and St. Petersburg and other streets in millions. And when millions are going to be on the streets, he cannot put everybody in jail. And that's the only call they can do. Russian people can stop this war. Otherwise, they are kept accountable for all the crimes. Even given the high popularity of this war in Russia, I think people are starting to wake up because we killed or wounded over 80,000 Russians in Ukraine, and will be more killed. And I think this is what people in Russia understand. They're going to die for nothing. They're going to die for their fantasy of Vladimir Putin and for his vain ambitions.
And back to your pleas for assistance, military and otherwise, you will get more military and humanitarian assistance from Australia?
Ukrainian government has requested our allies and friends to send weapons. And of course, President Zelensky yesterday talked about the long-range missiles and air defense systems that he's requesting from the President of the United States. Of course, Australia has been standing strong with Ukraine. We're very thankful to that. I've made a request, and the Ukrainian government has made a request for more artillery, more ammunition, more Bushmasters, more assistance to Ukraine, because we need it now. We need these weapons in order to be able to finish the job, to eject the Russians from Ukraine and to restore our sovereignty.
Ambassador, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.